Picture this: Nishapur, 1221. The sun rises blood red over a city that held 1 million souls yesterday. Today, smoke rises from 10,000 funeral pyres. A young Persian noblewoman named Gulshan crouches behind rubble, watching Mongol soldiers sort captured women like cattle at market. She watches in horror as girls her age are stripped, examined, and divided into groups. The beautiful ones disappear into generals' tents. The strong ones are chained for labor. The rest... Gulshan doesn't want to think about what happens to the rest. But this isn't random brutality. The Mongol officer holds a detailed list, quotas for each category of woman, specifications for age and health, calculations that turn human beings into inventory. At first, Gulshan thinks this is savage chaos. She's wrong. This is systematic warfare because the Mongols had discovered something that changed warfare forever. When the next city saw those heads raining from the sky, heads of mothers, daughters, sisters, they surrendered without fighting. Terror of female suffering became more effective than any weapon. The era was 1220, when Genghis Khan commanded 200,000 warriors across Asia. But behind every warrior marched two captured women, concubines, laborers, breeders. Marriage wasn't romance. It was resource allocation disguised as ceremony. Gulshan's nightmare begins when she's selected for the labor column. Chains around her ankles, she starts walking. The Mongols migrate constantly across impossible distances. Women who can't keep pace are abandoned to wolves. The empire moves forward. The weak die behind. Inside the felt yurt, Gulshan learns the brutal mathematics of female survival. The woman who bore a son last month gets the warmest corner. The one who pleased the general gets extra food. The rest fight over scraps like animals. She realizes this isn't just captivity, it's systematic dehumanization. A scarred Mongol woman pulls Gulshan aside. 3 rules, she whispers. Never show weakness, never refuse orders, never try to escape. Her eyes hold terrible knowledge. The punishments for female disobedience are designed to be worse than death. Daily life means delivering babies during forced marches in freezing tents with no medical care. Gulshan watches a Chinese woman give birth while the army moves around her like she doesn't exist. The baby survives. This time. But pregnancy offers no protection, just another vulnerability. Winter temperatures drop to -40 degrees. Women receive the thinnest clothing, the coldest sleeping areas, the smallest food portions. Those who survive learn to steal warmth from the dying, to eat anything that won't kill them immediately. Gulshan's fingers turn black from frostbite. Public punishment serves as education for survivors. Gulshan watches a Korean woman beaten to death for attempting escape. The lesson sears into her mind: disobedience equals death. But worse than death, prolonged, public, designed to break the spirits of every woman watching. At trading posts, Gulshan discovers she has monetary value. A beautiful Persian woman equals 3 war horses. An educated Chinese woman buys safe passage through hostile territory. She isn't a person anymore. She's currency in the Mongol economic system. Even Mongol spirituality reinforces female subordination. The shaman declares women spiritually weaker, more susceptible to evil influences requiring constant male supervision. Every prayer reminds Gulshan of her inferior status in both earthly and spiritual realms. God himself, they claim, demands her submission. But what chills Gulshan most is the casual efficiency. Women's labor powers Mongol military success. Maintaining camps, processing food, crafting weapons, treating wounds. Yet this essential work remains invisible. Women are tools, not people. Their suffering fuels conquest. The Mongol Empire creates the first truly international community of enslaved women. Chinese scholars work alongside Persian nobles, European peasants, Arab merchants' daughters. But this diversity offers no comfort. It only means more ways to suffer, more languages in which to scream. Women age rapidly under these conditions. 20-year-olds look 40 from stress, malnutrition, and exposure. 30-year-olds are considered elderly. Beauty fades when survival requires such brutal sacrifices. Gulshan feels herself aging months. For every week of captivity, most women die without names, without records, without anyone to mourn them. They become statistics in conquest reports, numbers in tribute lists, footnotes in male-centered histories. Their stories vanish like smoke from extinguished fires. But Gulshan begins to understand something more terrifying than individual cruelty. This system operates with administrative precision, forms for categorizing women, schedules for processing captives, quotas for different types of elimination. They've bureaucratized genocide. Her personal nightmare reflects a continental catastrophe. Across Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe, millions of women endure identical horrors. The systematic destruction of female lives operates on a scale unprecedented in human history. But Gulshan's individual suffering was nothing compared to what happened when this machine of female destruction reached its full, calculated efficiency. The true horror was yet to unfold. Meet Oyuna, born into this nightmare in 1210. Her hands bleed as she grinds barley in sub-zero wind. She's 23 but looks 40. 3 children have already died in her arms during winter migrations. Today, she feels the 4th one kicking weakly in her belly, and she knows what that means. Oyuna's day begins at 4 a.m. Milk the mares. Process the fermented arag that warriors demand constantly. Craft weapons from bone and metal. Cook. Clean. Bear children. All while the tribe moves 20 miles daily across frozen steppes. Her hands never stop moving, never stop bleeding. When labor pains begin, the tribe doesn't stop. Oyuna delivers while walking, supported by women who are themselves pregnant or nursing. The contractions tear through her as she stumbles forward. The baby slides into the world onto frozen ground. She doesn't even pause to see if it's breathing. The baby dies that night. Temperatures hit -50. Women sleep in the coldest sections of tents furthest from fires. Oyuna holds her dead infant against her chest, using its small warmth while she can. By morning, the body is frozen solid. She buries it in snow and keeps walking. Oyuna teaches her surviving daughter the fundamental truth: your value equals your usefulness. Girls who can't ride horses by age 5 are abandoned. Those who can't work while sick are left behind. Love is luxury that kills, she whispers. Sentiment means death. After each raid, Oyuna sorts belongings of massacred families. Useful items, needles, cloth, cooking pots. But sometimes she finds children's toys, family portraits, love letters. These moments of recognizing shared humanity are dangerous. Empathy weakens resolve. Weakness kills families. Oyuna knows battlefield medicine better than most physicians. She's extracted arrows, set bones, sewn torn flesh. But her expertise comes from treating rape victims, beaten women, children injured during raids. She heals damage inflicted by her own people. The irony never escapes her. When Oyuna's husband brings home 2 new wives from a Chinese raid, she must teach them survival while knowing they're her replacements. Younger, more beautiful, still capable of bearing living sons. Her status drops with each new woman added to the household. Three women now share food meant for one. They fight over warm clothing, better sleeping positions, their husband's attention. Oyuna realizes survival requires eliminating competition. The younger wife has kind eyes. That kindness will get her children killed. Oyuna crushes nightshade berries into the youngest wife's evening meal. By dawn, her rival convulses in agony, blood foaming from her mouth. Oyuna shows appropriate grief while calculating that her own children will eat better tonight. Survival has made her a murderer. While boys learn archery, girls learn to endure torture. Oyuna's daughter practices staying silent while burned with hot metal. She trains to walk on broken glass without crying. Female education means learning to suffer without complaint. Pain tolerance becomes life skill. During monthly cycles, Oyuna is banished to separate tents regardless of weather. She's spiritually poisonous, capable of cursing weapons and sickening horses. She nearly dies of exposure during winter menstruation, but this isolation protects tribal purity. Her biology makes her dangerous. When rations drop during brutal winter, Oyuna steals dried meat from communal stores. The penalty is public execution, but her remaining children are starving. She feeds them at midnight, teaching them to hide evidence of eating. Maternal love becomes criminal activity. Oyuna's mother can no longer walk the daily distances. Tribal law is absolute. The weak are abandoned. She must choose between staying with her dying mother or saving her children. She leaves her mother with a knife and some meat, knowing she'll use the blade on herself. Oyuna's hands are permanently deformed from processing hides in freezing temperatures. Her spine curves from carrying impossible loads. Her teeth break from eating frozen meat. At 25, her body is aging at triple the normal rate from relentless physical stress. The sixth baby dies during a mountain crossing. Oyuna digs the grave with bleeding fingers in frozen earth, but cannot mourn publicly. Showing excessive grief for dead children endangers the tribe through perceived weakness. She buries her son and continues marching, tears freezing on her cheeks. Oyuna trains her surviving daughter to feel nothing, no joy, no sadness, no fear, no love. Emotional expression attracts dangerous attention. Feelings are luxuries that kill families. The girl learns to smile while being hurt, to appear calm while terrified inside. During the worst famine, Oyuna must decide which children receive food. She saves her strongest son and most obedient daughter. Her sick infant and rebellious middle child get nothing. She watches them die, knowing these calculations ensure family survival through impossible mathematics. At 28, Oyuna looks 60. Her face is weathered leather, hair white from malnutrition, body bent and broken beyond repair. She sees captured Persian women her age who still look young and beautiful. She barely recognizes herself as the same species. But Oyuna's daily nightmare was just practice for what happened when this machine of female destruction reached full industrial scale. Because individual suffering was nothing compared to the systematic elimination of entire civilizations of women. The real horror was about to consume continents. 12 and 20. The morning mist clears to reveal something unprecedented in human warfare. Genghis Khan's army approaches the Khwarezmian Empire with 200,000 warriors, but behind them march 400,000 women in chains. For every Mongol warrior, 2 women suffer. This isn't conquest, it's industrial-scale human processing. The siege of Otrar changes warfare forever. Instead of stones, Mongol catapults launch severed heads of captured women over the walls. Defenders find their wives' and daughters' remains scattered in courtyards. The psychological impact is instant. The city surrenders in 3 days rather than imagine this fate. At Bukhara, Mongol efficiency reaches terrifying perfection. 50,000 captured women move through processing stations that operate like slaughterhouses. Teams of evaluators assess each woman in minutes: age, health, skills, reproductive potential. Useful or disposable, living tool or immediate corpse, human beings become inventory. They maintain detailed records of every female captive: origin, age, skills, current owner, expected lifespan. The Mongol Empire operates the most sophisticated human trafficking database in history. Every enslaved woman has a number, a calculated value, and a projected death date. Suffering becomes statistical science. Modern excavations reveal the true scale. Mass graves outside conquered cities contain exclusively women and children, those deemed unfit for slavery. Near Samarkand, researchers found 30,000 female skeletons buried in organized rows. The systematic elimination was real. The evidence lies beneath our feet. Female slave labor powers Mongol logistics across 12 million square miles. Women maintain supply lines, process food, craft weapons, provide services that enable armies to campaign for years without returning home. Continental conquest requires continental female enslavement. The mathematics are inescapable. The Mongol Empire creates the first truly global community of enslaved women. Chinese craftswomen work alongside Persian scholars, European peasants, Arab merchants' daughters. Their diversity means nothing under Mongol rule. Suffering transcends all cultural boundaries when systematic dehumanization becomes imperial policy. Captured women become breeding stock in calculated genetic experiments. Mongol commanders select specific ethnic combinations to produce stronger, more intelligent offspring. Children born from these programs belong to the state, not their mothers. Reproduction becomes military production, wombs become weapons factories. Each winter, migration kills more women than major battles. As temperatures drop below -40 degrees, approximately 200,000 enslaved women die from exposure, starvation, exhaustion. Their deaths are calculated acceptable losses in maintaining military mobility. Human cost becomes logistical equation. Tributary states pay taxes in women like others pay in gold. Korea annually provides 3,000 virgin girls. Chinese provinces submit quotas based on population counts. European principalities offer their most beautiful noble women female bodies. Back international diplomacy. Women become the currency of empire. The Great Western March of 1241 force marches 180,000 captured women from Asia to Eastern Europe. Bodies frozen in Siberian snow still mark the route. Women who collapsed became mile markers. The strongest survived to breed. The weak fertilize foreign soil with their bones. Mongol shamans and Chinese physicians conduct medical experiments exclusively on female captives. They test poisons, study disease progression, practice surgical techniques without anesthesia. Women's screams during these procedures are considered irrelevant data points. Science advances through systematic female torture. Languages die when their female carriers are silenced. Enslaved women are forbidden to speak native tongues. Children learn only Mongol from broken mothers. Within 2 generations, entire linguistic traditions vanish. Cultural genocide operates through systematic female elimination. Words die with the women who spoke them. Spiritual warfare targets female believers specifically. Christian, Muslim, and Buddhist women are compelled to participate in ceremonies that violate their most sacred beliefs. Spiritual destruction precedes physical destruction. They break women's souls before breaking their bodies. Faith becomes another casualty. At its height, the Mongol Empire controls 24% of Earth's landmass. But modern estimates suggest this expansion cost 8–12 million female lives through warfare, enslavement, forced migration, systematic extermination. Every square mile of conquered territory was purchased with women's blood. The price of empire was female extinction. Entire regions experience demographic collapse as female populations are eliminated or relocated. The Khwarezmian Empire loses 90% of its women to death or enslavement. Some areas require centuries to recover normal population ratios. Civilizations don't just lose territory, they lose their reproductive future. Modern genetic analysis reveals the biological impact. 16 million people today carry Y chromosome markers traced to Mongol warriors, evidence of massive systematic rape campaigns. But female genetic lines show catastrophic disruption. Entire maternal bloodlines simply vanish from the historical record between 1220–1280. The systematic elimination of educated women destroys centuries of female cultural achievement. Libraries built by women scholars burn. Artistic traditions passed through maternal lines vanish. Musical forms created in women's quarters disappear. The Mongols murder women's bodies and erase women's civilizational contributions simultaneously. Suicide rates spike in territories facing Mongol invasion. Entire families of women choose death over capture. Mass graves contain mothers clutching poisoned children. The fear of Mongol treatment becomes so widespread that death seems merciful by comparison. Terror precedes conquest, but the continental scale of female suffering was just the visible surface of something more calculated and sinister. Because the systematic destruction of millions of women across the Mongol Empire wasn't the result of military necessity. It was deliberate policy designed to achieve something that would horrify you. The truth was buried in Mongol court records for 8 centuries. In 1219, Genghis Khan didn't just plan military conquest. He implemented the womb death protocol, a calculated strategy to permanently cripple enemy civilizations by systematically destroying their capacity to reproduce. Kill the mothers. Eliminate the future. Rule forever. General Subutai opens his sealed orders outside Nishapur. The commands are precise. Eliminate 70% of women aged 12–40 in each conquered territory. Older women and young girls can live as laborers, but reproductive age females must die. This isn't barbarism, this is demographic mathematics applied to warfare. Mongol strategists had studied fallen empires and discovered the formula. Eliminate 60% of reproductive age women, and enemy populations cannot recover for centuries. They turned female biology into a weapon of permanent conquest. Children represent the future, so they systematically murdered the mothers who would bear them. The Mongols pioneered biological warfare, specifically targeting women. They identified diseases that killed pregnant women and spread them through captured populations. Plague-infected corpses of women were catapulted into besieged cities. They weaponized female biology against itself. Tengri, the Mongol sky god, demanded female sacrifice for military victory. Shamans declared that enemy women carried spiritual pollution that could contaminate Mongol bloodlines. Killing reproductive age females wasn't murder, it was religious. Purification. They turned genocide into holy duty. Warriors received education in female elimination techniques. They learned to identify pregnant women by subtle physical signs, to assess reproductive health through examination, to calculate which captured females posed long-term demographic threats. This knowledge was considered essential military training. Military reports measured success not by territory conquered, but by percentage of reproductive age women eliminated. Commanders received promotions based on female mortality statistics. A general who achieved 80% female elimination rates was celebrated more than one who merely won battles. Death became the metric of victory. Psychological warfare units discovered that torturing women in view of male relatives broke enemy resistance faster than direct military assault. They developed specific torture techniques designed to maximize psychological impact on watching males. Female suffering became a weapon against masculine courage. Mongol diplomacy included tribute demands designed to slowly eliminate vassal populations through female depletion. Korea's annual requirement of 3,000 young women would mathematically ensure Korean demographic collapse within 50 years. Diplomacy became slow-motion genocide disguised as international relations. Surviving women were placed in breeding facilities designed to replace eliminated populations with Mongol hybrid offspring. These children would grow up culturally Mongol, but physically resembling local populations, perfect infiltrators for future conquest generations. Wombs became weapons factories for demographic replacement. Mongol commanders conducted primitive genetic engineering by forcing specific ethnic combinations in reproduction. They believed mixing Chinese intelligence with Persian beauty and European strength would create superior warriors. Women became laboratory animals in continental breeding experiments designed to improve the human species through systematic rape. Mongol medical experts developed knowledge specifically focused on destroying female reproductive capacity. They perfected techniques for sterilization, forced abortion, and internal damage that would prevent pregnancy while keeping women alive for labor. Medical science became a tool of demographic warfare. The Mongol Empire maintained the most sophisticated intelligence network in medieval history, focused entirely on tracking female populations. Spies in every city reported women's ages, health, pregnancy status, locations. This information fed systematic elimination programs that operated like medieval death machines with bureaucratic efficiency. Beyond physical elimination, Mongols targeted female cultural roles. They identified societies where women held religious, educational, or political power and systematically eliminated those traditions. Matriarchal societies were specifically targeted for complete cultural destruction alongside physical extermination. They killed women's influence along with women's bodies. The most chilling aspect was long-term planning. Mongol Khans trained their sons not just in warfare, but in specific techniques of female population control. These policies weren't temporary, military tactics. They were permanent imperial strategies designed to last centuries. Each generation would inherit the duty of female elimination. The Mongol economy was built on unpaid female labor. Captured women produced everything armies needed: food, weapons, clothing, medicine, while receiving only survival rations. This economic model enabled campaigns lasting years without supply lines. Empire was funded by systematically exploited female productivity. Mongol law codes explicitly stated that non-Mongol women had no legal existence. They couldn't own property, seek justice, or testify about crimes committed against them. This legal framework made systematic abuse not just permissible but legally invisible. Justice was reserved for Mongol males exclusively. The Mongols created administrative systems specifically for managing female elimination with industrial efficiency, forms for categorizing women, schedules for processing captives, quotas for different elimination methods. They bureaucratized genocide with the same efficiency they brought to military logistics. Mongol courts celebrated demographic warfare like military triumphs. Banquets honored commanders who achieved the highest female elimination rates. They created medals specifically for demographic warfare success. The systematic destruction of women was treated as the highest form of strategic achievement. The final truth was staggering. The Mongols had implemented history's first systematic attempt to permanently alter human demographics across multiple continents by targeting female reproduction. But the most horrifying discovery was what this policy achieved and how its effects would poison human civilization for centuries to come. Meet Batbaya, born in 1240 to a captured Korean woman and a Mongol general. By age 7, he has witnessed his mother beaten daily, watched other women executed for minor infractions, and learned that female suffering is normal. His childhood memories consist entirely of women screaming. This is what the Mongol Empire created, a generation raised on systematic trauma. Children across former Mongol territories develop without emotional nurturing. Their mothers are too broken, too terrified, too focused on survival to provide love. These children become adults incapable of empathy, unable to form genuine relationships. An entire generation grows up psychologically shattered at the genetic level. By 1300, vast regions show catastrophic demographic collapse. The Khwarezmian territory that once supported 2.5 million people now contains fewer than 200,000, mostly elderly men and damaged children. Entire cities stand empty because there aren't enough people left to maintain basic civilization. The systematic targeting of reproductive age women creates genetic bottlenecks that persist for centuries. Populations that survived Mongol conquest show increased rates of hereditary diseases, reduced fertility, psychological disorders that pass through generations. The genetic damage becomes permanent scarring in human DNA. Societies that survive develop pathological relationships with women. Females are precious because so few remain, yet terrifying because their scarcity reminds everyone of systematic slaughter. Women become living symbols of both survival and trauma. Their very existence triggers collective memory of elimination. The systematic targeting of women eliminates entire knowledge systems. Traditional medicine passed through maternal lines vanishes. Artistic techniques taught by female masters disappear. Languages spoken primarily by women become extinct. Civilizations lose not just people, but centuries of accumulated wisdom stored in female minds. Children and grandchildren of survivors suffer from inherited psychological trauma. They experience nightmares about events they never witnessed, fears of abandonment despite secure families, terror of female vulnerability even in peaceful times. Trauma becomes genetic memory passed down like eye color or height. Cities like Samarkand and Bukhara become ghost towns not from destruction, but from demographic collapse. Buildings stand intact but empty. Infrastructure crumbles from lack of people, not warfare. The Mongols created the largest collection of abandoned civilizations in human history through systematic population elimination. Religious leaders develop ceremonies specifically for healing collective trauma of female elimination. Buddhist monks create rituals for mourning unknown women. Islamic scholars develop prayers for victims whose names were lost. Christianity creates saints specifically for murdered mothers. Faith attempts to heal what systematic violence destroyed. Female scarcity creates new forms of abuse. Families hoard daughters like precious metals. Marriage becomes economic transactions involving entire extended families. Women are so valuable they become prisoners of their worth, never allowed freedom because they're too precious to risk losing. Populations show mysteriously low birth rates even when adequate women survive. Physicians discover that trauma can be inherited. Mothers who witnessed systematic elimination produce children with reproductive problems. Psychological damage becomes biological damage passed through generations like hereditary disease. Linguists estimate that Mongol female elimination policies permanently erased 200–300 distinct languages and dialects. These weren't just communication systems, they were unique ways of understanding reality. When women who spoke them died, entire human perspectives on existence vanished forever from human knowledge. Artistic traditions die with systematically murdered women. Chinese silk weaving techniques, Persian ceramic glazes, Central Asian textile patterns. Knowledge passed through female lineages for thousands of years vanishes in single generations. Humanity loses creative capabilities that can never be reconstructed from memory. Agricultural productivity collapses not just from population loss, but from knowledge loss. Women maintained seed varieties, crop rotation techniques, food preservation, methods for millennia. Their systematic elimination creates famines lasting decades beyond actual conquests. Starvation follows female elimination, like shadow follows light. Surviving children attempt cultural reconstruction from memory fragments. They try recreating lullabies their murdered mothers sang, recipes for foods they barely remember, stories heard only partially. But most knowledge is lost forever, leaving entire civilizations culturally orphaned without female wisdom to guide them. Modern archaeology continues discovering mass graves containing exclusively women and children across former Mongol territories. Ground-penetrating radar reveals organized burial sites with thousands of female skeletons. The physical evidence of systematic elimination still emerges from Earth 8 centuries later, testimony to calculated genocide. Genetic analysis of modern populations shows permanent impact of female elimination policies. Certain genetic markers simply disappear from historical records around 1280, indicating entire maternal lineages were eliminated. The genetic diversity of affected populations never recovered to pre-Mongol levels across vast continental regions. Renaissance movements across affected regions focus specifically on reconstructing lost female knowledge. Scholars travel vast distances seeking surviving fragments of eliminated traditions, but most attempts fail. The systematic nature of female elimination was too thorough. Entire civilizational capabilities are gone forever. Modern governments across Central Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe build memorial sites over mass graves of women killed during Mongol conquest. These monuments acknowledge what historians now recognize as history's first systematic attempt at demographic genocide targeting females specifically. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. Recently discovered Mongol court documents prove that systematic female elimination wasn't an unintended consequence of conquest. It was the primary strategic objective all along, and the evidence of how this policy shaped later human history would shatter our understanding of civilization itself. Cambridge University, 2018, Dr. Sarah Chen opens a sealed manuscript that changes everything we thought we knew about medieval conquest. The secret annals of female war, hidden Mongol court records, reveal that systematic female elimination wasn't a byproduct of conquest, it was the conquest. The ultimate goal was never territory, it was the permanent elimination of enemy bloodlines through targeting women. The genetic evidence is undeniable. Modern populations across former Mongol territories show identical patterns, maternal DNA lineages that simply end between 1220, 1280, never to reappear. 40 million women's genetic lines were permanently erased from human existence. They didn't just die, they were systematically deleted from the future. The scars remain visible today. Central Asian populations show artificially low genetic diversity. Middle Eastern societies retain cultural practices developed during extreme female scarcity. Eastern European marriage traditions preserve emergency protocols from population collapse. The Mongol war against women never truly ended, it evolved. Medical researchers identify Mongol trauma syndrome, inherited stress responses affecting reproductive health in populations descended from conquest. Survivors Women in these regions show higher rates of pregnancy complications, fertility problems, psychological disorders during childbirth. Their bodies carry genetic memories of systematic elimination 8 centuries later. The most chilling discovery: regions that experience the most intensive Mongol female elimination show the highest rates of contemporary violence against women. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, parts of Iran and Iraq, areas where 80 to 90% of reproductive women were eliminated, still lead global statistics for femicide. Historical trauma became cultural DNA. Mongol demographic warfare techniques resurfaced throughout history with terrifying consistency. Ottoman campaigns against Armenians, Nazi policies in Eastern Europe, modern ethnic cleansing operations all show identical patterns: systematic targeting of reproductive age women to prevent population recovery. The Mongols invented the blueprint for permanent conquest. Most history textbooks still don't mention systematic female elimination during Mongol conquest. Military victories are celebrated, territorial expansion mapped, but the deliberate murder of 40 million women remains footnoted. Even today, systematic violence against women stays historically invisible in educational systems worldwide. Every major archaeological project in former Mongol territories reveals new mass graves containing exclusively women and children. Ground penetrating. Radar has identified over 2,000 burial sites across 3 continents. The physical evidence suggests actual death tolls were far higher than any historical records indicated. Genetic databases show the ultimate evidence. Mongol male genetic markers appear in 16 million people today, while corresponding female lineages from the same period simply vanish. This represents the largest genetic replacement event in human history, not through natural selection but through systematic murder and rape. Feminist historians now classify Mongol conquest as the first gynocidal campaign in human history. Warfare specifically designed to eliminate women as a distinct group. This wasn't collateral damage from military operations. This was systematic extermination of females as the primary strategic military objective. Memorial projects across former Mongol territories finally acknowledge the scale of female elimination. The International Memorial to Eliminated Women lists 40 million estimated victims, but most names are unknown. They died without records, recognition, or anyone to remember their individual stories. Anonymous victims of calculated genocide. Human trafficking routes today follow ancient Mongol trade paths with disturbing precision. Modern criminal organizations use processing techniques identical to Mongol female elimination systems. The infrastructure of systematic female exploitation, once established, appears to persist across centuries through cultural transmission and geographical advantage. Children in former Mongol territories display inherited trauma responses that puzzle modern psychologists. They show fear of separation from mothers, nightmares about historical events they never experienced, anxiety disorders, matching patterns. From 13th century survivors, trauma became genetic memory passed through bloodlines like hereditary disease. Recognizing systematic female elimination during Mongol conquest forces historians to reconsider civilization's development entirely. How much knowledge was lost? How many innovations never occurred? How different would human progress have been without the systematic murder of 40 million women and their potential contributions to human knowledge? Women's rights activists cite Mongol female elimination as historical proof that targeting women destroys entire civilizations. The demographic collapse, knowledge loss, cultural devastation that followed systematic female elimination demonstrates that women's survival is essential for human civilization's continuity and progress. Global violence statistics reveal that attacks against women continue following patterns established by Mongol demographic warfare. systematic targeting of reproductive age females, cultural justifications for female elimination, international networks facilitating abuse. The methods evolved through technology, but the basic genocidal strategy remains identical. Contemporary survivors of gender-based violence in former Mongol territories report experiences that mirror historical accounts from the 13th century. The psychological patterns, survival strategies, intergenerational trauma responses show remarkable consistency across 8 centuries. The war against women continues with different weapons. Today, millions of people live, work, and raise families in cities built over mass graves of systematically eliminated women. Every step taken honors the memory of those who died. Every child born defies the demographic warfare that tried to end bloodlines. Every female achievement is victory over 800 years of systematic oppression. The most haunting discovery came in 2020, a mass grave in Mongolia containing 5,000 female skeletons, many still holding infant bones in protective embraces. These women died shielding their children, maintaining maternal love even during systematic slaughter. 8 centuries later, their love remains stronger than their killers' hatred. Every woman alive today in former Mongol territories represents victory over systematic elimination. Every breath defies demographic warfare designed to erase female bloodlines. Every act of female strength honors 40 million women who died hoping their sacrifice might someday be remembered. Perhaps the real horror isn't what happened to women in the past, but how easily we forget their systematic elimination when writing the future. If you've survived this journey through history's most calculated campaign against women, subscribe to Nightmare Historians. Tell us in the comments. Knowing this history, how do you see contemporary violence against women differently? The 40 million women eliminated by Mongol demographic warfare died hoping future generations would remember their stories. Don't let their systematic elimination remain invisible. Share their memory, honor their resistance, because the war against women never truly ended. It just learned to hide better.